So most all my other videos, we talk a lot about technique. Today we're going to talk a little bit about something different. It's about how we differentiate ourselves and how we differentiate our work from the work that everybody else is doing. And I think most people, when they start to talk about differentiating and we talk about pens, we think casting and that I've got to get out there and I've got to start casting. It's just simply not true. Casting is a great way of differentiating yourself, but it's also very expensive. I mean, to get a good casting pot, you're into it for $200. To get an air compressor is another $150. To get your molds, things like that. Don't be surprised if you're not into it for $600 to $700 before you actually start practicing and playing with your own blanks and making your own blanks if you're casting. But you know what? I cast and I love it, and I think you'll love it too. But let's start out, if you're a beginning turner or you just want something to differentiate yourself, let's start out with a little something simple. So I'm going to show you 3 different techniques now where you're going to be able to differentiate what you're doing. The first technique is what we're going to do is we're going to be bleaching some pens. And I'm going to show you how we simply take standard household products that are all around the house and we use them to differentiate our work. The second technique is going to be a coloring technique. And it's a way that we're going to use simple colors that we can pick up, dyes, and we can get that double dyed look. I don't know if you're familiar with when people dye it and they do it in stabilization, and those blanks are very expensive. We're going to be able to do the exact same thing using a technique where we can change the color immediately, and it's after we've done turning. And the last one is another coloring technique, but it's going to be a surface coloring technique. We're going to be using a product called Glue Boost, and we're going to use Master Tint on top of it, and we're going to be able to surface color our product so we have something different from everybody else. So with that in mind, let's get right to the techniques. So as I said, this first technique is going to be a bleaching technique. And it is incredibly simple, easy to do, and you're going to mesmerize your friends with the effects that we're going to get on a piece of wood. So this piece of wood is called Wangi. And as you see, it's a very dark and it's a very chocolate colored wood. The cool part about it is after we bleach it, these little lighter lines will go almost white, and we're going to get just a very nice different technique that you haven't seen before. How do we do it? It's real simple. What we're going to do is we're going to take just an ordinary piece of Tupperware and household bleach. I would pour the bleach into the Tupperware, then I'm going to submerge the pen blank into it, and I'm going to let it sit. Now the only reason that I don't do it right here in front of you is because I can let it sit in there 3, 4, maybe even 5 hours to get a lot of different color variations into it. And the longer I let it sit in the blank, the longer and the deeper the white is going to be and the more contrast that we're going to have. So the setup on the blank is simple. I've taken this blank and I've sanded it down. I've done all my finish turning on it. I've sanded it down, but I've stopped at 400 grit. Because what we're going to do is after we put it into the bleach and we pull it out, we're going to let it dry. And that drying process, I usually let the pen blank dry at least overnight so that it's completely thoroughly dry. Then what I do is I will take 4/0 steel wool. I'm going to sand off the different ridges on there, and I'm going to get the ridges clean, and I'm going to get the blank back down to level. And then I go through my micro meshes, and then I put a CA finish on it as if I was doing any other type of CA finish that I'm putting on this pen. So after this little part, I'm going to show you the finished pen. I'm going to show you me pulling it out of the bleach, and we're going to have something that nobody else has.
I got to tell you, I love the coloring and the difference in the sapwood from the hardwood in this bleached Wangi. Look at the color variance.
So hopefully you can see the dramatic effects that you can get with bleaching. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you some other pictures of other things that I've actually bleached. The first one is black palm. And I love black palm as one that you can bleach. Same effect that you get on the Wangi, but you know what? It's a little bit more, we'll say, inconsistent because you get dots and lines as opposed to grain patterns on it. And then the second one that you'll see coming up now is the Purple Heart. And the cool thing about Purple Heart, you'd think you would just get a lighter color. You don't. Purple Heart bleaches to gray. And if you look at the pen blank that I've got shown here, you'll be able to see that the gray actually gives me this antique look and feel. I love picking that pen up because then I can ask people what kind of wood it is, and you get them thinking about it, and you get them thinking about the process, and then you surprise the heck out of them when you tell them that it's Purple Heart. So here are those pens.
So you can see the bleached palm, and in the second one, the antique of the Purple Heart. See the little purple trying to peek through?
So this next technique, we're simply going to take a 25-cent piece of maple. And what we're going to do is we're going to color it. And I love doing these kind of things because it gets me kind of thinking about stuff. You don't really need to spend a lot of money on a blank to get something that's unique. So in this one, we're going to take a 25-cent piece of hard maple. You can even pick this maple up at Home Depot if you wanted to in boards and cut it down and just play with it and see what you can do. In this case, we're going to use trans tints, and we're going to use other dyes that we have. And we're going to first put on a dark black coat, and you're going to figure out why I'm putting it on. That's going to give me some variation in color and in grain. And then we're going to put on red on top of it. And then after that, I'll show you a picture of the finished and completed blank. Once again, a very simple, easy technique, and we're only into this pen blank for 25 cents.
So you can see here, we're going to use some different kind of dyes. These dyes are readily available at most woodworking stores, and we're going to use two of them. We're going to do a black base coat and then a color. One of the things that I do want to point out, though, is you can see here, I want to keep this grain. I want the grain to appear through. I don't want it to look like paint. And the other thing you can see is I'm using Delrin bushings. I love the Delrin bushings. They give me something that allows me to get really close to the ends, but still protects my mandrel and protects my other equipment from what's going on. So the first thing is we're simply going to put a little bit of black on here. Why are we doing this? We're putting a heavy coat of black on here, but we're going to sand most of it away. The idea is wood is not perfect, and if I just put the red dye on top of this one, we would see a bright red blank, and that would look more like something that was painted or colored. We want to get nature involved. We want something that looks like it's artificially colored or naturally colored. So you can see here, I'm going to take a little bit of sandpaper and I'm going to start to sand this off. One of the problems that you have when you're doing this and you're working with these trans tints and any of the dyes that are sitting out there is they do gum up the sandpaper. And you can see it gets a little bit harder as we go along to actually sand and do it by hand and go with the grain. So what are we going to do? We're going to cheat, right? We're going to put the lathe on. I'm going to sand it as if I'm normally sanding anything else. But you can see here, I'm going to let it get down to where I'm going to try to get it light. And I'm going to try to get it real inconsistent. I don't want anything that's perfect at this point. Notice I'm randomly moving my dye around. I'm randomly putting on different pressures. I'm cleaning it off. I'm going to give it one more quick sand off. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add our second color. And this is how we get those double dyed looks and all the looks that people do when they are actually going through and impregnating the wood with color. We're getting the same effect, but we're a little bit more on the surface. So here we go. Here we're going to put on a little bit of red, and we're going to color it with the red. And you can see here, goes on real nice, clean, smooth, and easy. I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm going to finish it. And I'm going to tell you, we are going to get a spectacular looking blank when we're done with this one. As a matter of fact, here it is. So this blank, all I did was take it, finish the sanding process, and I put a super glue finish on it.
So now our final technique is we're going to tint our finish so we get a surface coloring on it. And you'll be able to see in this video, I take a speckled piece of wood, beautiful on its own. It would have just great color and grain variation and be unique. And we're going to add an orange color to it. That is a really cool differentiator. There's a whole bunch of colors in the system, and I'll mention it while I'm doing the video, but we've got purples, browns, reds, whites. I've used it to ebonize things. I've used it to antique things using the white. This technique is a solid technique to have in your back pocket. And the cool part about it is you can actually mix the color powders together and get any color you really want on it. Once again, very simple technique to master and a very simple technique to use.
So you can see here we got a beautiful piece of speckled wood, and what we're going to do is we're going to tint it orange. But as you can see, I want to keep the grain going through. I want to see what's underneath this. I don't want it to be something that looks like it was stained. I want natural chatoyancy to come through. So we're going to use Glue Boost, Glue Dry, which is going to be the accelerator, and finally a product that's new is the Master Tint. And what the Master Tint is, it's a dye, but it's a powder-based dye. And it's going to allow us to mix it into our finish so that we can get the surface color to remain on the surface. So as you see here, I'm simply going to put in a very quick thin coat of Glue Boost to actually seal up the wood. We want this to be a consistent and top color that we're putting on here. So you can see I'm simply doing it with the lathe off. I'm going to spritz it with a couple shots of Glue Dry, and then I'm ready to apply my surface color. One thing that I should have mentioned in the first video and that I didn't is you can always practice this technique. Round your blank down, keep it proud, don't commit to the bushings, and actually try your coloring on the first technique, try your coloring on this technique, try all your colorings, and then you can simply sand it off and you can take it off. So once again, you can see here I'm using my Delrin bushings, and that again is protecting my equipment from any of the glue and everything that I'm going to be doing. I've got a little spatula, I've got my Glue Boost, and I've got my dye. And what we're going to do is prepare it on the plate so that we can then apply it with this blue paper towel. This is going to be an incredibly simple technique. So you can see here, I'm going to put a little bit of Glue Boost on here. And you know what? I think I'm going to put a little bit more so that I can put on maybe a second coat right here on the lathe. So I drop a few more drops on here. And now I'm simply going to take the color that I want and the powder that I want, and I'm going to mix it. So I'll take a little double shot of the orange. I'll mix it up into here. Feel a little bit like Bob Ross right now at this point, and I'm getting some happy little colors that I want. But you know, you can take any of the colors in the system and apply them in here, and you can mix and match, and you can get basically any color from purple to the ivories to the ebonies to anything that you really want to go with. So now I'm simply going to pick some up with the blue paper towel, and I'm going to put it on the pen blank. And I'm going to use medium pressure the first time in. You can see that I'm getting my pen blank pretty much colored. I am going to concentrate on the ends. I don't want to make sure that I don't miss the ends and that I have a very clear and consistent color. So a couple times around, and then we're going to let it dry. And there you go. You can see my bushings did what they were intended to do. And then here is the finished pen. I love the coloring on this thing.
Well, there you have it. 3 very simple, easy techniques to differentiate your work from people and everybody else that's out there. But more importantly, it was 3 very simple, easy techniques that don't cost us a lot of money. We looked over a bleaching technique where we use simple household products. Then we looked over a dyeing technique where we can just simply pick up the dyes for under $10. And then finally, we looked at a surface technique where we can actually color or blend colors and mix colors together to get something that's just super finished, super glossy, and a very nice differentiator. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. As I say in all my videos, if you like it, please give me a like down below. If you would like to subscribe, please subscribe to this channel. I would really appreciate it. And finally, one thing to keep in mind is if you have any other thing that you'd like me to go over, drop me a comment. Put a comment down below. I do read all the comments. I do try to reply to all my comments that are sitting out there. Let me know what you're thinking. If there's some other technique you'd like me to explore, promise you I'll take a look at it and see if we can't get it done. As always, thank you for your time. This video made possible by the fine folks at Exotic Blanks. For all your pen making needs, Exotic Blanks has you covered. Find them at www.exoticblanks.com. And also by Pen Makers International. the educational source for pen making.